Hey everybody, Alex Newman here. We are at the COP30 in Belém, Brazil, and a lot going on as climate negotiators fiendishly work out a plan to save the world from carbon emissions, also known as the gas of oxide. Joining us today is the #1 climate skeptic in the world, according to the climate alarmist. His name is Marc Morano, editor of Climate Depot. He works with CFAC, the Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow. They were actually down here for the first week, getting into some trouble, exposing some of the hypocrisy here. Marc, welcome to the program. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. Happy to be here, and I'm happy you're down there covering the second week and being there the whole time. Thank you for your great coverage so far.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I really appreciate the work you guys did. Marc, you've been following these negotiations very closely, and even before all of this got underway, you were calling on President Trump to go ahead and withdraw from the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the underlying treaty that all of this is built upon. Explain why that's so important, especially with the absence of a U.S. delegation here in Belém.
Yeah, I mean, it is the most important thing. It rivals the only thing equal of importance for the Trump administration is to repeal the endangerment finding that says carbon dioxide is a pollutant, and we have the ability to regulate that under the Clean Air Act. Those two things together make a Trump presidency fun, but not permanent. They make enjoying the 8 years as Trump is president that does a great work, but we all see it undone immediately. So we went from Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump. Yin, yang, yin, yang. So what I did, it took a deep dive into this is based on legal analysis. Now, having said that, I think it's important to point out it's almost like an economic opinion in some cases. So we don't know 100%. You can't even say with any certainty, but it's going to come down to probably a Supreme Court case. But essentially, in 1992, George H.W. Bush got us into this whole mess with the Rio Earth Summit Treaty, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. It gave us Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. And this was, I believe it was May of 1992. George Bush went down to Rio, and he was worried about his reelection with Bill Clinton. He was running for reelection against Bill Clinton, and he wanted to appear green. This is what establishment Republicans had done. And I remember his chief of staff, John Sununu, actually said, "Oh, don't worry, nothing's going to come of this. We're just going to go down there. We're not going to, nothing. It's all going to be voluntary. Don't worry about a thing." They went down. George Bush, was bashed by all the leaders as the evil Republican, and he ended up signing on to the treaty. What's worse is the Senate at the time then ratified the treaty. So we have a ratified 1992 UN treaty, which then kicked off the entire COP process. 3 years later, I think was the first one in 1995. And this started the UN climate summits. This started net zero. This started the UN delegations and the negotiations and the goal of a fossil-free world and 1.5, 2 degree, all the bullshit that came from that stupid treaty, and all, of course, the UN intervention, sustainable development, the takeover of even local city councils and all these groups implementing the UN agenda. All of this goes back to the Republican president. So when President Obama signed the UN Paris Pact 2015, that agreement did not need, according to legal analysts at the time, did not need Senate ratification. This was never tested because it was just merely a sort of a progression of the 1992 treaty. They said we already ratified what this treaty does. So in 2015, we were able to start imposing the UN Paris Agreement on the U.S. because of that 1992 treaty. So Trump pulls out in 2017, didn't matter. Biden put us right back in. Trump undoes the entire climate agenda, doesn't matter. Biden restarted it all on steroids, including the Inflation Reduction Act. Then Trump comes in and undoes it. So the question becomes obvious, Alex. How do you prevent a future president, Gavin Newsom? And by the way, I will say it right here on your podcast tonight. I believe Gavin Newsom will be president of the United States. I absolutely do. I don't know if it'll be 2028, but I think by 2032. And I think AOC will probably be president of the United States. There are two different styles and methods of where they're coming from, but I just don't see a realignment. I see right now, actually, now we're talking a little bit off topic, but it's an important off topic. I see the Republican Party being taken over by the Never Trumpers at the moment, the establishment. And I'm talking about everyone from John Thune. I'm talking about the Speaker of the House. I'm talking about Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. I'm talking about key Trump cabinet members. So what I'm saying all that is we may have a threat from a future president, Nikki Haley or Marco Rubio, when it comes to this kind of climate stuff. Because most Republicans are like, well, I remember Bill O'Reilly. Donald Trump shouldn't get out of the UN Paris Agreement. He should stay in it. So people who call themselves conservatives just don't get it. They just think we can keep doing this dance with the devil at the UN and it's all going to work out and we keep our community and then we need a seat at the table. No, we need to upend the table. So anyway, long story short, if we can vacate this 1992 treaty, according to legal analysts, and this is according to Politico, it's according to media outlets, mainstream reporters, as well as legal scholars, it would make it very, very difficult for the next president to get us back in. You would need to sign a new treaty, and you would then need to ratify a treaty, which I believe would be virtually impossible to do right now. So that's what Donald Trump needs to do on the international front. Otherwise, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's real what he's doing, and it's the most phenomenal thing we've ever seen a president do when it comes to this agenda. But the bottom line is Donald Trump has to seek permanence. And so when I said this, I said, Mr. Trump, tear up this treaty of 1992. Donald Trump actually posted on Truth Social my entire segment from Fox and Friends. Now, his comments focused on the climate highway in Brazil, but I'm hoping he gets the message, and I'm hoping they move forward on this. They've made a couple soundings about it, but you're almost a year gone from his first year. This should have been done like first 2 weeks. This should have been on the agenda the first 2 weeks, is to vacate that treaty. There is no reason we have not vacated that treaty. The 1992 treaty has to go. And I'll say it again, Mr. President, tear up that treaty.
Yeah, we did see President Trump post your comments. That was very interesting. He's clearly paying attention to the work you've been doing. Mark, one of the things that we have noticed, and we've seen multiple people talking about this since we've been here, Jean Sue at the Center for Biological Diversity said this openly. Hey, it's great that the Trump administration is not here. Then we can pass a really ambitious agreement by consensus, and then the next president will be bound and will enforce it. Christiana Figueres, the former head of the UNFCCC, publicly said, we're glad Trump's not here. That'll enable us to pass a much more ambitious agreement, and then we'll just enforce it on the United States later. It's almost like as long as he doesn't get out of the UNFCCC, the globalists are celebrating. The people who want this global climate regime are celebrating. I mean, are the stakes that high?
Yes, I think, first of all, they are telling the truth. They're happy he's not there for two reasons. A, they get to bash him and say that they're not community. They're condemning people to a climate emergency. And secondly, they is capable of delivering the speech that he gave at the United Nations I think September 20th or whatever that was.
The General Assembly.
Week, the General Assembly. It was the most phenomenal speech, exceeding even his Davos speeches condemning Davos. But he went through a scam, a cult, a religion. They're all wrong. And so I think part of it was whether Trump had gone or was a U.S. delegation, or Chris Wright has said he wants to do the same thing, go and basically condemn it. So the UN didn't want that because they knew that would have been a media circus. They knew it would have made them look like fools. So they were very happy that Trump didn't go. Now, there is that whole school of thought, and that's why many Republicans like to go to these conferences. People like the new Utah senator, whose name is failing me. What's his name? He was a House member, Senator Curtis. And also, Garrett Graves and others who should know better, but they like to come to these conferences to have a seat at the table, right? Well, first of all, you don't need a seat at the table. The table needs to be kicked over and the table needs to be burned and crushed. Thirdly, they come and talk about the importance of fossil fuels. Well, no, you don't dance and you don't play these games. One of the things Trump 1.0, they appointed Rex Tillerson Secretary of State. One of the first things he does in the first 4 months of office, the former Exxon CEO, he goes off to the Arctic and signs a UN Arctic declaration to preserve the Arctic from climate change. That's not the kind of officials we need. So I think not being there was perfect as a precursor to just getting out of the whole thing and laughing at it. It's a joke. I mean, you're right there on the ground as well. when you have 80 nations sign up to sign or declare that they want to have a fossil free fuel world, it's unbelievable. I mean, they're living in a complete fantasy land. And then, of course, all the developing nations demanding money. And it's basic. And then the UN Secretary General, we must follow the science, like all the COVID language. So I think this is the moment, and it has to be done. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If Donald Trump doesn't, it's a catastrophic failure of his climate agenda. There's no other way. He's got to pull us out of that treaty.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about the negotiations here. The demands for money, same every year. Give us trillions, and then we'll go away from fossil fuels.
Stupid and comical. It's like, I don't even understand it. They're arguing over words, probably as we speak. The wording of the fossil-free world, where they were committing. Who gives a flying? Just do your BS and don't burn the place down and get out of there, and then we'll move on.
Well, it was ironic. As the place was burning down, fossil fuel fire trucks came to the rescue, fossil fuel chemicals to spray it out. The irony of all of it is just tremendous.
I did a video about weather modification inside the UN. It was funny because we were trying to figure out what was going on. We heard a noise inside. First of all, it's depressing because it's a temporary housing. There's no windows. You can't see outside. So we heard this noise, and then we noticed water intrusion and mists of water, and then we noticed things blowing, and then we noticed all these blowers on. It was raining real heavy, and the leaks, it's like a circus tent is what it is, for lack of a better word. It's a raining bubblers, giant circus tent set up, football field after football field of circus tents. And when it rained heavily, as it's wont to do in the tropics, it comes down heavy, and then it blows out all the water, and then all the noise. So it's like an indoor weather machine. As I was walking around, it took me a while actually to figure it out because there's no windows. You can't. So you go walk, 300 yards and not see outside. It's depressing in that regard. I can only imagine what that would be like to have a fire going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. Mark, one of the big celebrations here by these people was the new agreement to silence misinformation and disinformation. Yes. Not all governments signed on to it, but a handful of very close U.S. allies did. And their point person, Charlotte Scabby or something, I forget her name, she was running around saying it's not just the people who question the science who are the problem. Now, even the people who question the solutions to climate change are a problem. Now, you could count on one hand the number of people in here who are even like openly skeptical of this whole thing. So they've clearly got a target on your back. They're clearly concerned about the tiny handful of us who come to these things and expose it. What do you think this means? Are they getting desperate? Why do they feel the need to censor the internet and shut us up?
Yeah, I mean, let's just say it out loud. They are pathetic. They are they're not convincing. They're lame. They're predictable. It's just like the most schoolyard bully tactics. It's so ineffective even in their own world. Well, first of all, you go back, I think it was 2022, when the UN communication director, I can't remember her name, said, we own the science of climate change, the UN, and we're going to partner with Google to make sure everyone gets their search returns. And that was probably true at the time. I don't know now. I mean, you figure Mark Zuckerberg's like Thomas Paine. It's literally a champion of free speech. Bill Gates sounds like Donald Trump. I don't know what's going on in big tech. So I don't know. I don't know if big tech will cooperate in the next couple of years to do this. But that whole motion was like, I guess the word to be even tone deaf. Even their fellow liberals or progressives would just be like, "Oh, you guys are still doing that." I mean, it's like it just doesn't convince anyone. It was stupid, but it gives you a window into what they want to do. And I'm sure they can do it to the extent that they own the establishment media, to the extent that big tech will go along, the extent that they have algorithms. The most shocking thing I learned pre-trip is how Lula's Brazil is like a police state. We were working with conservative organizations. We've worked with them in Peru. We've worked with them in Europe, in Poland, all across the world. And this group said, basically, we can't provide you a single person willing to go on camera, because if they go on camera, unless you do they were talking about backlit and stuff, if we go on camera, Lulu's government will call us terrorists. They will call us insurrectionists because of, their president was basically the same thing as Trump. He was accused of an insurrection. And they said they're
throwing him in jail today.
They'll get in jail and they get debanked.
They
get debanked. Yeah, they're domestic terrorists, so they have the power to debank them under their Brazilian government definition. Wow. So this is shocking. So this is the government now calling for this kind of censorship. But I mean, I don't even know. Here's the thing, and this has been the most shocking. We are now in November of 2025. I've been at this, I mentioned Rio Earth Summit. I was listening at the time to Rush Limbaugh. This was May, I believe. I think I have the month right. May of 1992. I was doing door-to-door gutter cleaning sales. And I had a headphone in, and I was listening to Rush Limbaugh's radio show. I'd met Rush Limbaugh and interviewed him the year before. So I was all into it. And he had Dixie Lee Ray on, and she was talking about the Amazon rainforest and how it's the least endangered forest, and all these things are lies coming out of the Rio Earth Summit. And this was sparked my entire conversion on environmental issues. So having said that, I've been following these issues now 33 years. I cannot believe that Donald Trump has come in and dismantled the UN agenda, dismantled the domestic agenda, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Green New Deal, the solar, the wind subsidies. He's defunded. He's closing the GIS office at NASA. And there's just been virtually no blowback. I mean, yeah, Senator Whitehouse showed up. That was shocking, actually, because he's been relatively quiet. He showed up at the UN. You had a few other Nancy Pelosi looked like she was doing a hostage video. I think they have to say a few things because but no one gives a flip. Bernie Sanders was on Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan, he mentioned climate change, and Joe Rogan's like, didn't you see this Washington Post? Look at this. Here's the chart. We're like in one of the lowest and coldest periods of lowest period of CO2 and the coldest of the last 500 million. And Bernie Sanders is like, oh, I don't know. But anyway, let's talk about jobs or something. Bernie Sanders, there's no one that cares. They're lying low, but it just shows you that no one cares. And then CNN follows up all their pollster on CNN saying, the level of concern over climate change hasn't changed since 1989. I mean, it's just like completely collapsed. And it's not like the left has collapsed, because if you look at something like immigration, there's been major blowback on policies on immigration. You have the mayors, the governors, you have the media, there are people going nuts, social media. On climate, it's just been crickets, which just tells me it's like, they really forced this because most people just weren't paying attention. There were you and I and Heartland and CO2 Coalition, CFACT, but it just never made it mainstream. And thank Donald Trump for calling it a scam early on from day one of his candidate, before he even ran. But once people realized that, and COVID was also the red pill, so no one pushes back. So these conferences are just entertainment. In fact, I'm guilty of, I feel like I don't do as much substance anymore. Like I went on Laura Ingram's show holding up rolls of toilet paper, calling it crap.
I saw that.
That's how you get the American people interested. No one cares what they're actually saying. Oh, the UN has declared a fossil-free world, and people just yawn. I mean, they're buffoons and idiots. The whole climate agenda, I just can't, but they can't go away because the money is invested. The Getty Foundation, the Gates Foundation, the Soroses, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, corporate media, academia, all the government institutions, the deep state, they are never going to just let this go, because it has been their most successful environmental grip, starting really in earnest in 1992. So that's what I just find. So it's almost, I don't mean to sound flip when I say this, but it's almost boring and not even consequential what they say and do. That's why I just kind of like, unless it's entertainment value, it's like, what's the point? No one gives a rat anything they're saying or doing or pledges or anything they're doing here, now that we're at least temporarily out. So the thing that we need to do is get out of it completely. But I just can't believe this. And of course I'm planning on going to COP31 in some resort city in Turkey. And after that, it's going to be Ethiopia, Africa. And I got to confess, my only knowledge of Ethiopia is massive famines back in the 1980s. So I may have to travel with cans of tuna fish now or something in my luggage, just in case they run out of food. That's my, maybe that's a, what's the word I'm looking for? That's a socially inappropriate comment to make, but I just can't believe that. It sounds like another setup, like, another country that can't handle 50,000 people coming in with resources, hotels and transportation and food. I don't know why they like doing that, but this has been unbelievable. This COP.
Oh, they want to share the wealth. Huh? They want to make sure everybody gets a little bit of it.
Mark,
to your point, Gavin Newsom, actually, when he showed up here, he told these guys, you have to use different language. Nobody knows what a carbon emission is, and nobody knows where it lands or what it looks like. Nobody even knows what Celsius is. You have to tell them things they understand. He said, we need to talk about jobs. So you're right. Even their most vocal spokesmen have now admitted that it's a dead horse. But I want to add this, Mark, because one of the big things that we're talking about here, UNESCO had a big event with the Ministry of Education of Brazil. The OECD came in, and the big focus, they're saying an essential part of this is we're going to educate the children, not so that they just understand climate change, but so that they take action on it. So I think they're counting on just being able to brainwash the next generation to go for it. In the last few minutes that we have left, Mark, we've talked about kind of a 50,000-foot view of what's going on here. What are your recommendations for just regular everyday Americans who are sick of the grift, who are sick of watching their taxpayer money be flushed down the toilet, who are sick of these calls for ending our sovereignty and dismantling our industries and going back to primitive conditions of living to stave off the climate hell that they're talking about? What do normal people do about this who are sick about it?
Well, I think the number one, and I've given this some thought lately because I'm seeing local governments capitulate to big tech. I mean, just in the state of Virginia, we have the highest number of AI data centers. Our electric bills, our utility bills, are literally subsidizing Bill Gates, Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no other way around it. They're zapping all of our energy. Now, of course, it's because of solar, wind, and all that. But here's my and all the local politicians here in Virginia. Oh, we run against it, and they have hearings, and they get. But every time they do, more data centers get approved. They're just obviously being bribed, and the money's just washing over any real opposition. So anyway, having said that, that's off point. So the main point is this: it's time to stop the climate bull from top to bottom. So I think what you need to do is I know like the county I grew up in Fairfax County, Virginia, they have like climate declarations. They have net zero policies. They have all these climate policies, even in the state, even down to like the plastic bags, which just make no plastic bag bans, which make no logical sense. And they give you a paper bag that falls apart. I think it's time for people when they're running for office. I think people have to go to forums. They have to call offices, find out your local leaders. I'm talking about state, local, city, and Congress, and just root out all the climate rhetoric and bullshit and meaningless declarations they've done. Almost every U.S. city has declared climate. Well, I shouldn't say every U.S. city, but every blue state city has declared climate emergency declarations. You'd be surprised at how many conservative districts would have fallen. And also go after the root out sustainable development, root out Agenda 21. So the way to do it is you just have to like start making this a toxic issue by going to the forums, asking them, and forcing politicians to answer why are they doing this? Why are they going along with it? It has no meaning. It's not going to have any impact on emissions. None of it matters. And yet we allowed this logic for 30 years to go along like, oh, yeah, of course I'm green. I want an electric car. Really? 500,000 pounds of material to make one EV battery and you're calling it a green car? Are you a moron? So I don't know. I just think it's time for us to have no quarter for any bull. It's just time to stop it at the localist of levels. Don't even let anyone say, well, of course I believe in climate change, but I think that's too expensive. That was the old Republican view. No, it's a scam. It's a cult. It's bullshit. We can't control the weather in terms of our CO2 emissions. We're going to end it. And I think that's got to be done at the local level. It's got to be embarrassing for any candidate to promote that. And if they're for solar and wind, if it's a limited circumstance where they cannot use climate as a justification, they cannot use green as a justification, they cannot allow bans on anything, they cannot allow subsidies other than the normal subsidies that any business would get. So it's time to really clean house. I'm in Virginia. Our governor is now going to try to go forward with offshore wind after the previous governor didn't, but we'll see, because if Trump can do this right at the federal level, we can choke all these companies that were relying on the subsidies to go bankrupt, all the offshore wind companies. So you can be all for, like the New Jersey governor, all for offshore wind, but if the companies go bankrupt that are building them, then you're not going to have offshore wind. That's another way to go about it.
Yeah. Fascinating, Mark. And yeah, agree with you 100%. The grift is coming apart there, but we've got to start.
But there's always a grift. What I'm getting at, and I alluded to it earlier, is the Republican Party is being hijacked right now away from MAGA. Yeah. And MAGA is America first. And I'm going to say a couple things here. I was a Pat Buchanan and Ron Paul, Ron Paul, but also Phil Crane from people probably don't know who that is. He was a congressman from Illinois. He was known as Dr. No. So I've always been appealed to the America First foreign policy, the America First agenda. You go back and look at Pat Buchanan in 1992. I was a volunteer on his campaign in 1992. I covered his campaign in New Hampshire for several weeks as a reporter when he won the New Hampshire primary against Bob Dole. He almost beat George. Anyway, my point in mentioning that is that's the MAGA party that we all know, not these everything being whitewashed now to like Tucker Carlson is not MAGA. That's insane to me. And that's gonna my reason I'm bringing this up is I don't if Trump doesn't take care of this now, the permanence angle, I'm fully forget Gavin Newsom. I think the Republican Party, in order to look kind, especially if they're worried about elections or the electorate turns, or the mood of the country, they're going to jump right back in. Remember, Bob Dole wasn't opposed to this. George H.W. Bush wasn't opposed to this. George W. Bush wasn't opposed to it. He went along with it. He funded it. IPCC, the UN, they sent delegations. They only quibbled over the numbers and didn't allow anything to happen. Obama.
Mark, when we were in Azerbaijan last year, 5 Republican congressmen showed up, and every single one of them, was blabbering about what a great job they were doing reducing CO2 emissions and carbon capture technologies. Every single Republican. And when we asked 7 U.S. senators in Dubai what they were going to do if Trump became president again, they said, "Oh, don't worry, we got the Inflation Reduction Act. We're setting up, green jobs in Republican congressional districts. Like, we're going to keep moving forward to this regardless." So I think
that's
right on.
Our problem really has always been from within.
Yep.
It's the way that there's throughout human history. The ruling class, governing elite, uniparty, establishment, deep state, whatever you want to call it, has always found reasons why the rest of us cannot be free. And they're just not going to give up on climate. Republicans have an atrocious history. Republican nominees, Mitt Romney, John McCain.
Yep.
Before Trump, name a single Republican other than Ronald Reagan in terms of the presidential nominee level who was any good on this issue. There wasn't. I mean, in terms of nominee, there were some candidates, but so that's going to be our big fight is keeping this. We have to keep it. Feels like we're winning right now, but I've seen this too many times and they're just not going to give up. They need this level of control, and they're going to also merge, I think, climate more and more into COVID and public health. We're seeing that with the World Health Organization, the climate declaration. We're seeing it with the doctors diagnosing patients.
You were the first one to call that, and I have seen it more and more. They're even
using
the same rhetoric. We got
the doctors dancing
of the CO2 emissions.
Doctors dancing against fossil fuels, which is insane. Like, fossil fuels are the greatest boon to public health and long life in the history of our planet. And there they are dancing like maniacs at this conference. One of them looked like he had a giant penis behind his head. If you go back and watch the video of these dancing doctors, I'm telling you, look at the video. It's insane. Crazy. It's just nuts. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, it feels great right now. It feels like we're winning, but there are so many forces aligned to take this whole down. And I don't trust the Republican Party, and I don't think MAGA is strong enough to overcome it just because history says it's not. But we'll see. Yeah,
well, we've got our work cut out for us. Huh? Mark, what's the best way to follow your work? Obviously, climatedepot.com, cfac.org. You're on an X. It's at Climate Depot, I believe. How else can people follow the incredibly significant reporting that you're putting out there?
Well, at Climate Depot and Climate Depot on X, and also climatedepot.com right now. And my book is The Great Reset: Global Elites and the Permanent Lockdown. You can support Jeff Bezos on Amazon and buy it, or you can actually buy it from Skyhorse, the publisher, directly. So
excellent. Hey, Mark, really appreciate you spending so much time with us. Thank you for being down here. Thank you for your work exposing this all over the place. And I hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
All right.
All right, folks, that's all we have for this one. Go to thenewamerican.com for more. Share this out. Send it to people who need to know, including your elected officials. And God bless you all.